Welcome to the M1 Fitness Podcast. I'm your host, Marcus Sadhu, and today we are going to be chatting about what to do if you're not losing weight. So first off, what creates weight loss or fat loss? It's a calorie deficit. That is the one and only way fat loss can happen. You must be in a deficit, meaning you have to be burning more calories than you're taking in. So if someone says, I am in a deficit and I'm not losing weight, by definition, they're not in a deficit. And fortunately, there's just no two ways about this. So it actually simplifies the solution a lot, which is awesome. So maybe you thought you were in a deficit and you're not, or maybe you're just looking to create one because you want to lose some weight. So how do we go about doing that? There are three options. Number one is reducing your calorie intake. Number two is increasing your activity. And number three is both. So you'd reduce your calorie intake and increase your activity. Now, what is going to yield you the best results? It's option number three, via using both decreased calories and increased activity, of course. Option number one, reducing your calorie intake, is going to yield the second best result. And then finally, option number two, increasing activity, is going to yield the third best result, aka last place, but still on the podium. Now, it's obvious that reducing your calorie intake and increasing activity is going to yield the fastest results. We know that. But why is reducing calorie intake alone going to be more effective than increasing activity alone for fat loss? The answer is, it's just super easy to out-eat your activity. So for example, if you burn an extra, say, 200 or 300 calories per day, which is like an hour-long workout, a fairly vigorous one at that, that's an equivalent of 2 tablespoons of peanut butter. So basically, in 10 seconds, by eating a couple tablespoons of nut butter, there goes all your calories you just burned over the course of your hour-long workout. So it is just really easy to out-eat your activity levels. We see this in runners and cyclists quite frequently, right? They're really active and they work out super frequently, but they're overweight. And it's just because they're out-eating the amount of energy that they're burning. Simple as that. Also, we tend to drastically overestimate how many calories our activity burns. And one of the primary reasons for that, I think, is that calorie burning trackers are just super inaccurate, but we take them to be accurate. And I'll probably put together a podcast on this topic alone. So if you're interested in it, hit me up. Let me know if you'd like to see that. So if reducing calorie intake is the more effective way to lose weight, how do you do it? It is exactly like balancing your budget. First, you need to figure out how many calories you're taking in. So you can use something like MyFitnessPal. You can write everything you eat and drink in your phone and tally it up after. You can write it down by hand if you're old school, whatever you want. But I'd say the most convenient and accurate option is something like MyFitnessPal. That's personally what I use. So track your intake for a week, and let's say you're eating 2,500 calories per day on average. Great, we know where we are now, right? Then moving forward for the next 7 days, try reducing your calories by say 200, 300 per day. Or if you see that your calorie intake is lower during the week and a lot higher on the weekends, for example, you can shoot for a weekly total. So let's use a 300 calorie reduction. So 2,500 calories minus 300 is 2,200. So you're going to shoot for 2,200 calories per day, which equates to 15,400 calories a week. So you may choose to eat 2,000 calories per day Monday through Friday, and then you can have 2,700 on both Saturday and Sunday if your schedule just works better with that setup. It doesn't matter how you structure your calorie intake over the course of the week. All that matters is that your weekly totals add up and you maintain that deficit, meaning you could also just eat 2,200 calories straight up per day, every day. It's totally your call, and you can set it up in a way that suits you and your lifestyle best. Just be sure if you go with this calorie reduction setup that your movement habits stay the same. So if you're averaging 8,000 steps per day and you're working out 3 times per week, don't dip below that when you reduce your calories, because that will reduce your calorie expenditure. So you need to keep all of your inputs consistent. Now, maybe you don't want to reduce your calorie intake, even though that's the more effective way to set things up. So you're going to go with the increased activity route. I think steps are the best way to go about this. If you are already working out, you can just keep those workouts rolling and then increase your daily step count. The reason I recommend tracking steps in this instance is because workouts vary so much from session to session, just based on how you feel, what movements you do, whether it's a spin class or a yoga session. There's just a lot of room for variability, whereas as far as steps go, 10,000 steps is 10,000 steps. Sure, one day your steps could be via hiking a mountain, but that's fairly easy to control for because your step counter should actually count flights as well. So that's trackable. Steps are also just super accessible because you can do them anywhere, anytime. You don't need a gym or any equipment, nothing. The barrier of entry is as low as it gets. So if you do want to go the formal workout route to increase your activity, you can add sessions on top of what you're doing. Just remember, if you do go with the increased activity route, whether you add workouts or you add steps, you need to keep your calorie intake the same, because if you just increase your calories burned, but then you also increase your calorie intake, you're going to make up that difference and you're not in a deficit anymore. So that's how to go about using the calorie reduction model and the increased activity model. And then obviously combining the two is combining the two. So I don't need to explain that. As far as things to look out for, whether you go with the calorie tracking and reduction model, the increased activity model, or combining the two, consistency is key. You don't want to track your calories one week and then not the next, or do 4 workouts one week and then none the next, and then 2 the one after that. Consistency is so important because you want to minimize variables so you can identify trends and then make adjustments where need be. This is exactly what I do with my coaching clients. Now, building off of the consistency piece around calorie tracking specifically, just track everything and take the ambiguity out of the equation. If you only track Monday through Friday, you just have no clue how much you're taking in over the course of the week. Or if you track your food but not your booze intake, again, you just don't know how much you're taking in. And the same goes for snacks. If you track all of your meals, but you don't take your snacking habits into account, you don't know what your calorie intake is. So I'd recommend just biting the bullet and committing to tracking absolutely everything so you can take control over your results and don't leave things up to chance that you just don't need to leave up to chance. Take the ambiguity out of the equation. There are plenty of things that we can't control for, but what and how much you eat and or drink is just not one of them. So what I instill in my clients around tracking is doing so with the utmost amount of accuracy in mind, not trying to make your intake look good. So for example, you had a great day. You ate nothing but single ingredient whole foods and you're stoked on how everything played out. You'd be like, Marcus, you'd be really proud of me. And then you had a couple cookies and a small bowl of ice cream that put you, say, 400 or 500 calories over your target. Track it. You ate it. You don't get brownie points for not tracking things. You just get inferior results. So be honest with yourself and account for everything. It's actually really fascinating from a psychological perspective. A lot of us tend to bend the truth with ourselves, as well as the people that we actually put in place to help us. It's really interesting. We tell the dentist we're flossing more than we are. We tell doctors that we exercise more often than we actually do. We tell nutritionists that we rarely eat processed or junk foods when that's just most often not the reality of things. Be honest with yourself if you're doing this on your own, and just be honest with the people you've put in your life to support you, because it's sort of like going to a financial advisor because you want to be more financially secure and maybe potentially invest and just be smarter with your money all around. And then you provide your advisor with inaccurate income, spending, and tax documents. It's just like you're shooting yourself in the foot. Also, the dentist, the doctor, and the nutritionist know whether you're doing what you say you're doing or not. This is probably sort of the funniest and the saddest part at the same time. This is what they do all day long, and they've dedicated their lives to it. They are experts. They know what flossing every day looks like. They know what a body is supposed to look like when it's healthy, and they know what sort of fat loss results are yielded by specific nutritional intakes. Oftentimes they won't call you on it, but just know they know. Anyways, on a personal note, many of you guys probably saw my recent 12-week no gym quarantine transformation. If you haven't yet, you can head over to the website at n1fitness.com/articles. And while you're there, you might as well sign up for the newsletter so you get all of this stuff as it comes out. But I was actually surprised by my alcohol intake. It was higher than I thought it was, but I tracked absolutely everything over the course of the 12 weeks, and then I totaled everything up at the end, and I averaged 5 drinks per week. And I can honestly tell you, it didn't feel like 5 drinks, but it definitely was because I tracked it. When I was tallying everything up, I thought, I'm probably in the 2 to 3 drinks per week range, but it was actually 5. And it's worth saying, I did count every drink as a drink, meaning a drink was a regular size beer. So I wouldn't count a tall boy as 1 beer because that's actually 1.33 beers. So the same goes for wine. I counted a glass of wine as 5 ounces because that's what a glass of wine actually is. So when you're going for a 9-ounce glass of wine at a restaurant or just free pouring at home, you're probably actually taking in almost double of what you think. So if you're not losing weight and you want to, something needs to shift because nothing changes if nothing changes. And also, don't fall for this starvation mode bullshit and thinking, oh, I might not be eating enough for fat loss. My body must be conserving fat. No. The whole term starvation mode ironically only exists in the developed world where food is abundant and virtually no one is starving. So if you think for some reason your body is holding on to fat or conserving it, track everything for 2 weeks and see what happens. I promise you, you're either eating more than you think or you'll start tracking everything, and the attention to tracking itself will actually improve your eating habits, reduce your calorie intake, and voila, you'll start losing weight again. Now, if you're interested in personalized one-on-one nutritional coaching and or workout programming with me, you can click the link in the show notes below or head over to n1fitness.com/coaching and apply. Also, friend me up on Instagram at N1Fitness and Marcus Sadu on Facebook. I hope you guys found this episode useful, and if so, and you're feeling generous, feel free to share it with someone who you think needs this information. Thanks so much for listening, and I will catch you on the next episode. See ya.